All right, hey guys, back another charting video. Um, I'm live in the Discord right now. Only person in right now is Shiv. I'm not sure if you guys will make it uh soon or while I'm making this video, but regardless, it's gonna be recorded, posted in the chat. But anyways, so what we're gonna go over, we have where are we? How did we get here? And we're gonna talk about making the watch list. What what sectors, why do sectors matter, what to look out for, and then we're at the end. We're also going to start charting the tickers to give you guys an example. Um, I didn't go over my tickers list, um, so I don't have any tickers to show you off the top of my head. So we're going to go through each sector and try to find something. That way, I can also give you guys my thoughts based off of just seeing it for the first time, at least right now. So let's start getting into it. So remember, guys, I always chart on the 4 hour time frame. Weekly, remember, like how we said, it's more of a bird's eye view just to get a picture of the entire chart. Daily levels, remember, we only use daily levels for futures only, at least what I do. With this, it kind of gives us our daily bias, but for charting specifically, it's always going to be the 4 hour. For there are some times where I'll use the weekly, but it's usually for specific levels, not really for charting down to the very details. But anyways, 4 hour. We're gonna start with the 4 hour. So the concept that I always use is where are we and how did we get there? Are we trending? Are we basing? So let's look at Microsoft. So this one is a very good one. I really like this one. So like I said, posted this in chat a while ago. The weekly level, like I always said, we have our level right here. And oh wait, I forgot to share my screen in the chat. Let me go ahead and do that right now. Okay. Okay. Screen is shared in chat. So anyways, uh, my bad guys, lost my train of thought. I'm just trying to make sure everything is running good. Okay. So anyways, we have our level right here. This is our weekly. Like I said, my weekly is mainly specific for levels. So let's go on to the 4 hour. So, like how I said, where are we and how did we get here? So we are currently at a retest level, which I also like to call it my falling knife level, falling knife entry. Why do I say falling knife? Is because we have an aggressive sell off, aggressive downtrend, whatever you want to call it, and then hits our little dip buy area right here, and which also call it support, demand, whatever you want to call it. I call things differently sometimes, so but in the end, it's all the same thing. Anyways, so yeah, I call this right here. I notice there's a little kind of base action right here at this specific level. This is basically what started the move to the upside. As you can see here, broke out of this area, started the trend to the upside. Once again, I was looking for some type of falling knife. I'll get into entries in another video, but for now it's just charting, so I won't get too much into detail into that levels or into what that means. Anyways, so falling knife entry
And
here.
wait, my
Let's look.
bad. You're looking for a liquidity sweep off of that, right?
Yeah, yeah, pretty
Okay, okay.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's look at the 4 hour. So now that we see how we got there, now we see what was that? Was that a
My bad, my bad.
soundboard? Anyways, so yeah, now that we got here to this level, now we can kind of get an idea of where we're gonna head. So, like I said, this is gonna be our falling knife entry. If you got into this level, you can see that it's probably gonna start trending back upwards, as we can see here. I called Microsoft in the chat today. If you guys took it, nice. If not, plenty more to go over. Anyways, so yeah, so we get this right here. Now, what I'm looking for here is for some type of retest, or if not, it might just hit these wicks, go back down, maybe some type of base. But anyways, regardless, that's currently where we are. What I'm looking at is currently a reversal. Let's look at another example. Let's take a look at, let's see, Apple.
So for most of these charts, you're necessarily looking for like a liquidity sweep on a high time frame every
So
time.
for
Necess-
charting, yeah, something like that. So I'll always look at something
and then
where levels
obviously
were.
entry off like a different confluence, as in like OTE, FUG, or whatever. I know you don't really use it as much as I do because I just started learning ICT. But yeah, I mean, explain how you would go about like the entry off of these levels. I think that's going to be helpful.
Yeah, so what my usual thing is my whole concept is based off retest, support, resistance levels. Just like how I said, usually where I chart is where I believe levels are likely to react. So I'm not sure exactly when I had this level for Apple, but as you can kind of follow the chart, it basically reacts to this entire level right here. So at one point I saw a level on where this is probably going to react from, and if you just kind of follow the chart, we see it start to move to the upside here, a break right here. We get a little dip buy right here, and then we start the uptrend. So it's just stuff like that. So let's take a look at Apple. So like how I said, where are we and how do we get there? So taking a look at Apple, we started the uptrend, currently in some type of base formation. Um, Kind of this area right here. As you can see, we broke out of this base. We're getting that test, and we can possibly see a drop tomorrow. Like I always say, who
Yeah, I was
knows?
just about to say I didn't want to like go off course of the class, but I agree. Like right at that trend line right there. I mean that baseline, and once we break through like solid few candles, it's definitely gonna
Yeah,
present a move.
yeah, exactly. And then not only that, if you kind of look in a smaller, if you kind of zoom into it, you also have a base during pre-market as well. For stocks, it's a lot differently. When I trade stocks, options, I look at pre-market levels um, as more of a guidance. That's how I usually go based off of options. For futures, it's a lot different. It moves a lot more crazier than options. But if we just take a look at the 15, my thing would be like, okay, we're currently basing. So my thing is, if it breaks below, I'm gonna take the below. If it trades above, if it breaks above, sorry, then I'm gonna go for calls. However, if we stay in between the pre-market low and high, then I'm gonna trade, or I probably won't touch this. It's probably just gonna continue basing. But the idea is, if you want to trade it, short the top, calls for the bottom. So yeah, but obviously we saw a break intraday. We also saw the futures drop today in the morning, and I think it picked back up or something like that. I didn't really get to look at the at the futures this morning. It was a little busy, but anyways, that's my idea of it.
Yeah,
Um,
so from seeing your ranges that you put, you guys could tell how you see in his range when it hits the high, it goes right back down, and then when it hits that low, it breaks right under. So like just seeing those levels, that's going to be your clear indication. And then when you're in the middle of that, like you'll notice this in like maybe in an RSI indicator, you don't want to be caught up in a choppy price action. You want to be catching that good entry, not perfect, but you want that good entry.
yeah, so exactly. So and another thing I say, I tell people too is one thing that I don't say is chop. Just I mean everybody calls it chop, if you call it chop, you want to keep calling it that. No worries. It's just the way
I mean, like
my
consolidator. I mean, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with saying chop. It's just based off my thoughts and what I think is when usually people. I'm not saying you specifically. I'm not trying to call you out, but I'm just saying like in general. Even I said
I know
I've
what you
called.
mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah, like I've called these things chop before, but looking at it from a different perspective, I always call it consolidation or base. Same thing at the end of the day.
100% I agree, to be honest. Because
E-
sometimes like a chop is considered untradeable. Like I know you were
Exactly.
thinking about this before, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's exactly why I always tell people like, I don't recommend calling it chop just because it's still tradable. The only thing people call it chop mainly is because if you look at the smaller time frame and you're taking a look at something like this, you're gonna have no idea what the hell to do, and that's why people call it chop. But if
Yeah,
you
see,
just put
that's
it to
definitely like
if you
that's
put
for
it to
sure a chop.
yeah, so stuff like that. It's like I look at the bigger time frames, and when you look at the bigger time frames, you get a clear picture of what's going on. Like from the 5 minute, you can't really tell what's going on right here in this
Yeah,
little
there's nothing
area.
going on there.
But if you
But
kind
that's
of
the thing though, I
scale,
guess the difference is when it consolidates, there's a move that, the accumulation or I mean the distribution.
yeah. So my thing with that is there is public participation, there is distribution, and I believe it is. Uh, Consolidation. I always forget the third one, but it is
No, I
the
got you.
accumulation.
It's necessarily just
Accumulation. Sorry.
yeah,
Uh,
so necessarily you just want to go by the AMD model: accumulation, manipulation, and then distribution. You don't really have to worry about much other because those three steps, and then it will like tie into like quarterly theory. We're not getting into that this class, but you know, a lot of things are moving through the time. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So yeah. So anyways, like I always said, if you kind of go to the bigger time frame instead of the 5 minute, what I noticed here just now is we have a triangle formation. I believe this is a descending triangle. I believe. But as I said, I usually go based off pre-market levels, as we see here. Yes, I believe this is a bearish type of pattern. But however, we did not break below pre-market low, so we're still good for calls. As you can see, this was the bounce area, and this is why I said it never broke above, or technically it did break above pre-market high, but it never started trading. We never got the retest and the continuation. So as we can see here, I probably wouldn't have traded this day just because it was basing out this entire day. Anyways, also to look at is you can still trade this as well. Like I said, I heavily depend on the futures when trading options, and when I'm trading futures, I heavily depend on, for example, NQ Mag 7. I heavily depend on that to give me the direction of where it wants to go. So I can't really give out an exact answer on how I would have played this out because I'd have to look at the futures. Obviously, if the futures were at supply and I see Apple is not breaking below pre-market low, I would probably take an entry at that level. But like I said, I'm not exactly sure how the futures played out during that day, so it's not important to me now. So now that you have an idea of how I chart these things, another thing that I noticed as well on the 15 is if you just kind of look at this area here, we have some resistance on that level, and then we ended up breaking out. So as we can see here, we have resistance, started the sell off, we have a base formation here, and then back into base right on that resistance. However, this time we officially broke through and it started to go for a rally. Anyways, so yeah, so just kind of looking for resistance levels, support levels, things like that. That's what I mainly look for. But we'll get into that on more specifically towards the end of the video. So now that we know where we are and how did we get there, let's take a look at making your watch list. So making a watch list is very important. Um, that's something that everybody should have, whether you trade stocks, futures, whatever you trade. And the reason why I say that is because it's mainly an experience thing. So, one thing I did when I first started it off was I grabbed my sectors and I grabbed the holdings in those sectors. I organized them and I charted every single one of them before I go to bed. And I'm not bullshitting you guys. Some of you guys might be like, oh, like I doubt he did it every single night. I did it every
No, yeah,
single
that's
night, Monday
solid.
through Friday.
That's solid. I used to do that also, and that actually led me to one of my biggest profitable months. It was just watching certain stocks because one of them usually outperforms all of them off like a news or something like that. So that's why you want to be watching a lot of different ones.
Yeah, exactly. And also too, since I trade options as well, one ticker isn't going to give me what I want, you know. If I'm seeing Apple right now, um obviously we do see, if you see my cursor, we do see some sort of retest, so I'm looking for a short. But however, if we're kind of, let's see, let's see what to look at. I'm trying to give a good example. Not really seeing anything in this chart. Maybe this area right here. If I were to take a look at this, you know, I probably wouldn't really get in on this until I see some type of breakout. But I'd always get the low and the highs of this to really get that. But moving on to the ticker side, like how I said earlier, is very important to make your watch list, because you're looking at multiple different things. You know, if you're just looking at, for example, ES, if you're only looking at that, what I believe and what's happened to me is that I'll get fatigued. I'll see things that aren't there. um, I'll probably see some type of, for example, retest. But in the bigger picture, on the bigger time frame, you know, we're bearish, and I'm looking for calls on a retest when on the 5 minute, you know, it just broke out of a tiny base, and you know, I'm thinking of going for a continuation, whatever, blah blah blah. So that's just one example of um, another thing, as in looking at something else when there's nothing in one chart. Like, for example, if I were to look at this, you know, I will probably couldn't tell you, you know, what we're gonna do. I'd probably wait until something happens, either until it drops out of this base or pops out of this base, but I'd have my alerts ready. Anyways, so yeah, making your watch list is very important. Another thing is what to add to your watch list. So I'm not saying, oh, add only certain tickers that you see look good for your watch list. You know, what I'm talking about, add to your watch list, is add tickers from each sector to your watch list, like how I have right here on this left side. So, like how I said, if you guys watch my other video, I have the futures in here, and then I have my tech sector right here. Go a little bit down. I have my health sector right here. I have my financial sector right here. My airline sector. I have my energy sector, and then I have my ARC sector. So yeah, and each and every ticker in that sector belongs to that sector, so it's well organized. So if you guys want to copy this, take a screenshot. I'll probably take a screenshot of this and post it in the chat as well. That way you guys can copy it. Or if you guys want to do it on your own, just go on Google, search up, for example, XLK. What are the top holders of XLK? You know, tech. Obviously, you got Microsoft, Apple, Google, Meta, Amazon, Nvidia. You know, all those big things. And let me get my journal out. That way I can tell you guys the sectors of the market. So there is 11 sectors of the market. Obviously, I don't have 11 sectors on my chart. It's because some of them aren't really that important, in my opinion. Yes, technically, each sector has a purpose, and some of them, and they are important. However, these are the ones that I will trade and look at, and in my opinion, are the most important. So, we have XLB, which is materials. We have XLC, which is communication. We have XLE, energy, XLF, financials, XLI, industrials, XLK, we have tech. We have XLP, consumer staples, XLRE, real estate, XLU, utilities, XLV, healthcare, and XLY, consumer discretionary. So what I have on my chart is XLE, XLF, XLK, and XLV. I'm probably going to add more. I believe I'm going to add XLY on there as well. But those are my sectors and my tickers within them. And those are very important, and they matter because each sector is, especially when trading ES and NQ, those are heavily tech sectored. So if you take a look at, if you search up on Google, what holds the most ES or what holds the most NQ, if you guys didn't know, it's mainly tech heavy. So that's why I say whenever I look at NASDAQ, I look at the MAG 7. The MAG 7 is, let's see, it's Microsoft, Apple, Google, Netflix, Meta, Amazon, and I believe Nvidia is on there too. I always forget one. But if I'm wrong, you can always search it up. What is the MAG 7? It'll tell you right there. Even if you also search up what follows NQ, what follows ES, it'll tell you it's tech. And it'll also tell you it's the MAG 7. So anyways, that's why sectors matter. And it also depends on, like I said, YM, RTY, they also depend on those as well. I believe YM is more financial heavy, or it's RTY. I always forget which one is which. I do know RTY is made of small caps, and then YM is blue chip stocks. Anyways, so that's why I say sectors matter. And so now the next thing we're gonna go over is looking for support and resistance level, retest levels, and bases. So, as we can see here, so this is the three things that I would mainly look for when charting. So I know Shiv asked me earlier, what do I mainly look for? So I look for trends, I look for retest, bases, and support and resistance areas. So, as you can see here, we get this base area right here, consolidation, chop, whatever you want to call it. But in the end, I'm always gonna call it a base level or a base area. Sorry. So like how I
All
said,
right, say you take a trade off this level, the break of structure. Say you did take a trade.
mhm,
What expiration would you use?
it really depends. What I recommend for everyone is to get the contract for next week. So if we're on Monday, today's Monday.
That's
Um,
valid.
yeah.
Because
So
the theta will be good.
yeah, yeah. The theta, and not only that, if it doesn't go your way, obviously you'll have time to for the chart to do its thing, and hopefully it goes in your favor. Obviously respect your stop loss, no matter what. Like I said, if I take a trade, let's say for example, if I take a trade today for next week expiration, so today we're on the 9th. If I take an expiration for the 20th and I buy in right here, I'm obviously not going to hold my contract even if it drops all the way down here. I'm still going to respect the chart. So I would probably say just below this base is where I would cut my losses. My max loss will be this wick. Anything below that, I'm out. I'll get a new entry. I take a loss. Cool. So, anyways, uh, getting familiar with this is what I would always look for. I'd look for bases, support resistance, and retest levels. Basically, same thing, support resistance. Obviously, if it breaks those, you're looking for some type of retest on that. Example, we get this break on this level right here for Apple. So I'm looking for a retest. If we don't get the retest, oh well. Sometimes this thing will just rally. We get a rally, base, rally, and then another base right here, and we'll see where it goes from there. So yeah, so we
Waiting
have
for the
that.
red folder and maybe earnings is also a good one because if you're in profits already and the moves off the earnings or the red folder is positive, then that's what makes your contracts blow up. But at the same time, there's also negative risk.
Yeah. So the thing with earnings, um, to me, earnings will always be a gamble. To me, I never hold. I don't care whether I have a month out. If I have a month out, I might hold.
No, I know
Um,
it's kind of like people are against it. I just I have like a I just kind of like them because that's where I hit one of my biggest trades. So I just feel like
yeah,
yeah, it is high risk, but definitely is a good opportunity to, blow up one of your contracts. If say you sold say you had two contracts, say you have one runner left and you don't mind, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with taking earnings. The only thing how I play earnings is I am willing to. I'm putting in my head that I will lose this money. So what I usually do is if I there's times where I'll trade earnings, to be honest. So I'm not gonna tell you don't trade earnings, but what I'm saying is that it's a gamble, and whatever you're willing to comfortably lose, just put that amount. So obviously, if people are telling you, "Oh, earnings, it's gonna be good," um, go for calls, and if you only have 500 bucks in your cash account, and a contract is $400, I
Yeah,
really wouldn't
100%.
recommend taking that
Yeah,
trade,
I
just
agree.
because you don't know how it's going to play out. Nobody knows how earnings is going to play. I don't even think the CEO knows how the earnings is going to play. Um,
It's also just because the IV, the implied
yeah, yeah, the
volatility,
IV
moves
will
so
screw you
much
over as
that
well.
you can actually win the trade itself, but you'll end up losing all the money because of volatility.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we'll get into more into depth with the options contract in another video.
Yeah, that's gonna
Uh,
have to be, yeah.
yeah, but IV is a one thing you really have to pay attention, and earnings especially, it will ruin your contract, which is another reason why I say don't take earnings call. But I've done it. Everybody's done it. But I always see it as a gamble play. Um, so yeah. Anyways, so same thing. Let's look at bases. Let's keep it simple. So instead of mixing it, looking for support and resistance, we'll go over bases first, just to show you guys how I identify them. So we have base here, we have a base here, we have this area, or you can put this area right here as your base. You have a base here, you have a nice base right here. This is a perfect base. Let's look past here. Let's see. Let's keep taking a look. We have base formation here. Base. Oh, sorry, I didn't click. Base formation there. Base formation there. Small base right here. Small base right here. We have base right here. Base right here. There's bases everywhere. It's so I see these all the time. This is what I look for. Like how I said, I used to chart every single night. So every single night, I'd always go ahead and look for bases. Um, so yeah, that's how I identify them. If you guys don't know what basis is, it's just where price is just consolidating at, mainly support and resistance. So yeah, so let's just go.
Another name is like floor. I know people
Yeah,
under
yeah,
that.
yeah. Some people call them floor, ceiling. I've heard all kinds of names, to be honest. I've
No, you
heard.
definitely don't want to get confused with names. Like whatever works for you, honestly, is fine too.
Yeah, well, yeah, whatever works. The only thing for me is that when I say support and resistance, I'm mainly talking about levels, specific levels. And when I'm talking about supply and demand, I'm looking at
Yeah.
areas. So that's the only thing. So now let's move on to support, support levels, and then we'll get on to resistance levels. So I already had this level here. Not sure when exactly I made this, but I have my support level here, and as you can see, this used to be a resistance level. So we see price rejects from this level, heads down. We get a little base formation there. You could say this is a base right here or within it. Um, and then regardless, we get price go back up to that resistance. We see it reject. However, we get a nice pop to the upside, and then we get a nice base right above previous resistance turns support. And guess what? Now this turns into your dip buy, whatever you want to call it. Now we'll look for calls in this area, trade it to the upside. That's your retest. And there you go. That's how you play those trades. Let's see. Let's look at some more support areas. Let's see. Let's see. Same thing as well for like how I said the bases as well. Support. Support. You'll most commonly find support areas on in bases. That's where you'll usually find them at mainly, but also as well. Example: resistance level turns support. You got resistance right here. Turns support when it hit it during pre-market or during the last 4 hours intraday. Let's take a look at this closer. Obviously, they're not perfect, but in this right here, right here, this is what I was talking about. Sorry. We see intraday the last 4 hours it touched this right here, shot back up, ended up rallying the next day. So yeah, let's see. Look at more support areas. Let's see. I'm trying
This
to
is just
find.
options.
This is everything. So, you can apply this to futures. But futures.
Oh, you're showing the strategy.
Sorry, what was that?
I see you showing the strategy.
Yeah. So right now I'm showing basically how I chart my things. So
Mm-hmm.
today is just charting. It's just to give you guys an example. I'm looking more towards options just because they're there more clearly. As you can see, sometimes the futures don't really have those levels clearly. Sometimes people might get confused. But right here, if you take a look, right here is a support level right here. So as you can see, we get a bounce here, and what is this? Yesterday we get the bounce from this level as well. Um, so yeah, but just to give it more clearly, for you guys, I'm doing mainly stocks. But I'm not sure if you were here earlier, but I always
I
say
wasn't.
whether you trade just futures or options, I recommend building a watch list with stocks as well, just so you can get familiar with everything. So yeah, let's take a look at a different chart this time. Let's take a look at Microsoft. Let's take a look.
Well, yeah, watching the Mag 7, if you're trading NQ, definitely helps because then you'll see like the sentiment of the market because you know the tech market. So
Yeah, and also for that too, I'll have another video specifically on uh those things as well. I know I always say in chat, I always look at NQ and ES when trading options or Mag 7 when trading NQ. So I'll have a video dedicated to that specifically for you guys that are confused, just to give you guys a more in depth on how I use that. Um, so yeah, so let's take a look at Microsoft. So for those of you guys that were paying attention to my calls, yesterday I mentioned that I'm looking at Microsoft. Um, so as we can see in Microsoft, if we're looking at the 4 hour time frame instead of the weekly time frame, we see that today it was building pressure at this level, kind of right there, under that level right there. So we see from the weekly that we said it wicked this falling knife entry. Also, again, we get that retest, um, and ended up popping up. Let's take a look at the 15-minute just to get more
Billy, we got
detail.
3 minutes by the way, just letting you know.
3 minutes. Oh, okay, gotcha. So yeah, so we get our falling knife entry. To be honest, if I believe this was Friday when okay, never mind, this was Thursday. Um, since this was at the close, I probably wouldn't, or I didn't, but I wouldn't get in on this trade. Just because it's at the close and we had a lot of selling strength that day. Um, so, however, we see during pre-market it starts to recover some of it. Didn't recover fully, but it did recover. However, I would have probably entered this trade on Friday. However, if you're new, if you have a small account, I don't recommend trading ODTE. Usually, ODTE, it screws you over big time if it doesn't go your way. So you have to be very careful, and obviously as well, only put what you're willing to lose. So for example, let's just say this area was ODTE. Let's just say
The
this
only
was
thing is
Friday.
with the ODT is my fault.
Uh,
You can make good money scalping those.
yeah,
If you get a hang of scalping them, it's very good. But if you just going in and losing money, then you're cooked. Then you go to
yeah, yeah,
swings.
yeah, exactly. So, um, like I said, we'll explain more in depth with the options later on in future videos. But yeah, you never want to hold long term for ODT. ODT is always in and out. So that's just a brief
30 minutes to
explanation.
an hour, max 2 hours, I'd say. Anything more than that,
Pers-
you're playing with your
personally,
money.
personally, me, I'd want to get out within minutes. As soon as my contract goes green, as soon as I see a strength candle, for example, if I were to see something like this, I'm out. Um, just because the theta will eat up your contract. So for example, let's just say I buy an ODT contract, let's just
Yeah,
say
every
at
hour, I think.
yeah, something like that. But let's just say I get
Every hour
into
you lose money.
yeah, exactly. Uh, but for example, let's just say it's 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Market closes at 1. 10 o'clock, I enter, let's just say right here. I enter for calls right here, expecting that it's going to go up. So it goes up, whatever, it comes back down. You know, if you don't sell, whatever, if you hold it all the way up until here, which is what, an hour goes by, an hour and 5 minutes, whatever it is, um, most likely if you bought in here, if you got to fill in at this level, for example, let's just say your contract will probably be around this area or up here, depending on what your theta is. So it's a lot different than futures. So for those of you that don't know options, um, just because you get a fill down here doesn't mean your entry is going to stay down there. For ODT, it'll move up to give you guys an easier explanation. So yeah, obviously, like I said, that isn't the best explanation, but it's more of a brief of how it is. I'm gonna make another video on options specifically on the contracts and how they work, but that's just a brief explanation. So just to continue with it, if I were to hold this for an hour, and let's just say we have an hour left into the market, um, every minute, you know, your contract is going to get screwed over. And if this move happens and you got your contract down here, it won't even matter. You'll probably still be red. So that's just an example for that. The contracts, they work crazy, and a lot of people they don't trade options because of, you know, the Greeks. They don't understand them, and that's how I was in the beginning too. I only traded futures because I never understood options because I was always too confused on how the Greeks worked. So anyways, that was a little off topic. Let's go back to our support levels. So as we can see here, let's go on the 4 hour. Like how I said, we chart on the 4 hour. Let's see. Right here, right here would be my what the hell? Whoops, I had the wrong one. Right here would be my support level, as we can see. Um, Another way to identify them is, to me, whenever there's two bounces on the level, that's my that would be considered my support level. Obviously, it depends on market sentiment. I don't heavily, strictly depend on support and resistance. I have multiple confluences depending on how the market sentiment is and how that dip plays off, where it opens, where it closes. So just because I say it's at a support level doesn't mean I will buy it just because it hits that level, because it just really depends on how the market is. So yeah, I'm just giving you guys examples on how to find these levels and how to find these areas. So yeah, so let's take a look here. We get our support area right. Let's see, right here. We can do this right there. Support, we get a bounce there, bounce, bounce, under for a little bit during pre-market, and then pop. We get the test and or our dip buy technically. And then if you just kind of drag it out further away, you know, it does the same thing as well. Another thing that I like to go by is whatever happens in the past is likely to happen in the future. So that's another thing, another saying I say as well. Just because, you know, this was, let's see, this was on the 14 when it bounced from this level, or 9/11 when this bounced the first time when it made that move. And if we go to next month, it's still making that move. It's still bouncing from that level, which is why I say whatever happens in the past will likely happen in the future. Does it have to happen? No. But it is something to take in consideration. So let's look at another level. Let's see. Oh, okay, here's another example on what I was talking about earlier on the support level. Just because it's at a support, I'm not going to buy it. So we see this level here. we see this is our obvious support level. We get a bounce here, a bounce here, a bounce here, bounce, bounce. We get bounces everywhere. And what I mainly do, I mainly set my support and resistance levels mainly at the bodies and not the wicks, in case you guys haven't noticed. Um, yes, as you can see here, obviously there's wicks at these levels, but what I mainly look for and how I set these is from the body. As you can see, body right here, body right here, body right here, and then the wicks will come into play later. But I always do them at the body, usually. There are some times where you can use the wicks, but me personally, I mainly use the body. Just because that's either the open or the close, and the wicks are usually where the contracts previously were, where they sold their contracts, where they took profit, whatever it is you want to call it. So that's why I never really put them there. Anyways, to continue it, let's say you're taking a look at this area right here. This is a support area. So you're saying, okay, I'm going to buy it here, obvious support. So let's say you're buying it here, whatever. Let's say you make money here, you make money here, you make money here the next day. And then let's say, okay, I'm going to do it again. Or maybe you wait for whatever reason all the way up until this area. And you're like, okay, this is an obvious support area or support level. Let me go ahead and buy it here. So you buy it here, you get stopped out. And you're asking yourself, why did I get stopped out? We're at a clear support level. We had multiple bounces. What the hell? Obviously, the market is out to get me. No. So this is why I say, where are we? Or where are we and how did we get there? So we got here by trending upwards. We had a very aggressive pop from earnings, as you can see down here. And then
you take the shorts, right?
Yeah, personally, like I said, I wouldn't trade probably within 2 days of earnings. I'll let it settle.
Yo, Billy, but can I take over here? I'm gonna do a little NQ class for these guys.
Oh yeah, go for it. Let me just
you could stop recording because I'm gonna speak with them.
Okay,
but if you want to finish up real quick, my bad.
Yeah, I'll probably finish. Let me finish up this topic, real quick, and then I'm gonna leave the Discord and I'll continue my video off the Discord, and then I'll post it later tonight. So yeah,
how long are you making these anyways? Because I thought we were doing 30 minutes. My fault, bro.
Usually I do these until
doing an hour.
Yeah, usually about an hour. So about 15 minutes left. But yeah, I'll wrap this up. I'll wrap this up for you. I'm just gonna finish up this topic, and then I'll leave the Discord or the chat, and then I'll finish it up. And you can go ahead and do your thing. But yeah,
I didn't mean to rush you. I wanna talk to these guys that are in here.
Yeah, no worries. I know I went a little over time. But yeah,
you're good, bro.
So yeah, like I said, we have an aggressive pop and then an aggressive drop right after. So just looking at that, we come from all-time highs. So seeing that, we came from all-time highs from earnings. So it wasn't really normal price action. So it's an earnings play. We drive the price up, and then it comes right back down. People are taking profits, so they drive the price down. Anyways, so we have an descending triangle here, and this level is this is a bearish type setup. Obviously, it doesn't always play like that, but it's likely to happen because we had an aggressive pop and drop from earnings, and not only that, we're at all-time highs. And to me, in my opinion, all-time highs is where I'm more likely to short it. Obviously, that doesn't always happen. It'll just keep on rallying. Example, we were all-time highs here at one point, and it just kept rallying or kept trending up. Sorry, and you go based off of pre-market levels. In my opinion, that's what I go based off of. But anyways, going a little bit off topic. So let's say you buy this area here. You're wondering why you got stopped out. You got stopped out because we have a descending triangle coming from all-time highs. So this is likely to go for a short play. So that's how I would go based off of it. So yeah, that's basically it for that example of support. I'm gonna go ahead and leave the Discord or leave the voice channel. That way Shiv can take over. So the rest of it, you guys can look at it on the YouTube. I'll post it shortly, probably after this. So yeah, I'll let Shiv take over. So hopefully you guys in the chat enjoyed.
That was
So
good,
yeah,
bro. Thank you.
Thank you.
we'll
Thank you.
continue this right now. All right, see you later, guys.
Appreciate that, brother. Peace.
Safety.
All right, so I've now left the chat. Support level is gone. We are now going and looking at into resistance levels. So let's move on to another chart. Let me try and find a good chart for you guys. Okay, actually, Apple had a really good one. So Apple, let's delete these levels. So yeah, Apple, we are looking at resistance levels now. So let's look for resistance. We see resistance here at this level. Why? Because this is what started the move. So one thing that I mainly look at is what starts the move, and it's usually the bases of those levels. So as I said earlier, we have our base in this level, so we have an obvious resistance here as well, since we have a base. So since we have that, we obviously know where our resistance is, so we sell off from this level right here, which started the move. So yeah, we come down here, we have our little accumulation or little base area, ends up breaking out of this base area. Let me just draw it up for you guys, that way you guys can get the example. So we get out of this area, go back up into resistance, which is also likely to short, as you guys have seen with these levels here, and also over here. So like how I said, also applies to what I said earlier. Whatever happens in the past happens in the future. So like how I said, just looking at this, if we just kind of pay attention to this area right here, let's just say that move hasn't happened. So we're looking at that. This is our resistance. This is our bias for the week, day, whatever you want to do. So we have that resistance. We get that drop. We get the pop. So knowing that we have resistance at this level, you want to drag this level over there. And guess what? Whatever happens in the past happens in the future. Does this always have to happen? No, this always doesn't have to happen. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. As you can see here, it never stayed and it never rejected off resistance. It blew right above it. But like how I said, it always depends on the sentiment. I never go based off of solely support and resistance. I always add other things to it, but I will add them. I will add those in later videos on my entry videos, more likely on how to trade this way. But this video specifically is just based off charting. Anyways, so that's our resistance level. Let's see, what else can we look at? Our resistance level here, resistance here. Not the best drawing. Let's lower this down. Resistance. So like how I said, all you need is 2 candle bodies or a body and a wick. I never do wick on wick. I always do a body first and then a wick, or a wick first and a body, whatever it is. But however it is, I mainly do a body. So yeah, as we can see here, gonna get a little off topic here. We have an ascending triangle here in this area. Obviously, like how I said, why didn't it? Taking a look at Microsoft from earlier, as we said, we were at all-time highs, and then we get that drop, and then why all of a sudden it popped instead of dropped, coming from all-time highs, when you said earlier that we were coming from all-time highs, especially with earnings, and we also have earnings with Apple. Why didn't it drop? Like how I always say, you never know what the market is going to do next. Sometimes, obviously, these have strength more than others. So this popped, but obviously later on it ended up dropping below, or not. You know, obviously sometimes they stay in its support level, or areas, whatever it is. But, like I said, market does whatever it wants. So, anyways, as we can see, it obviously kept it sort of stayed in this area and then, went back up and then ended up dropping eventually. That's just the way it is. You just kind of have to identify them yourself. So yeah, so like I said, some of these have different strength than others. Um, Microsoft, it was obviously weak. So obviously Microsoft went down. It went on a downtrend. Apple, obviously, it was still strong, so it's going to continue to rally. How do we know when it is strong? When we take a look at the futures. If the futures is dropping and we see Apple hasn't broke below pre-market level, we're obviously seeing that this has strength. Or if we see that Apple is rallying up and the futures is dropping, obviously we see Apple has more strength than other tickers. So that's basically how it is. We have resistance here. Let's see, what else? What else do we have? I'm trying to see what else I can put for you guys as well. Let's look at another chart. Let's look at Netflix. Let's see. Okay. Netflix is a good one as well. We have our resistance here. Usually resistance are what I also see it as is old support turned resistance. So obviously this used to be support. Now this turned into resistance. We obviously dropped below and then we're trying to build pressure back. Today rejected and we rejected from previous support turned resistance. So there's that. Also this right here, we have our demand area. So right here we have our demand. We're just taking a look at this right here. We have our demand area and then turned resistance. So we dropped below this demand, started building pressure, and we reject from previous demand, turn supply. So the way I also see it as well as if we can hold above support, it's confirmed for calls. If we can reject from support or supply, we are confirmed for resistance or supply. If we break above or below, for example, if we break below support or demand, that has now turned into supply and resistance. If we break above supply, if we break above, I'm getting confused. If we break below demand and support, that has now turned into supply and resistance. If we break above supply and resistance, that has now turned into support and demand. Obviously, it doesn't always work out that way, but that's usually how my concept goes. As you can see here, we break below demand. We start trending upwards, little trend upwards. Then we reject from demand, previous demand turns supply. That's basically how it goes. So yeah, that's my concept of that. Let's see. Let's look at something else. Let's look at meta. Let's see. What are some levels we can go by? Oh, perfect. Right here. We have, let's see. Let's take a look at this right here. We have a trend going downwards. We get the break of the trend. We get the pop. We get the pop and drop. Starts accumulating in this area, and then we get the pop again, starts trending upwards. That doesn't matter. Let's just take a look at this for now, for example. So, as we can see here, this turned into accumulation once it hit this demand area. Obviously, levels aren't perfect. As we see resistance here. Let's see, let me give you guys a clear more picture. We have resistance here at this level. So if you kind of just take a look at my cursor from here all the way up until here, we have resistance. Obviously popped, but that doesn't matter. We have resistance there. So that was my area. Obviously, price can accumulate in or below, but in the end, it'll usually stay in that area, whatever. Like I said, levels aren't going to be perfect. However, as we can see here, whatever happens in the past happens in the future. So what happened over here? We hit that demand area, and guess what? It starts its accumulation phase. Accumulation is a base. Public participation is the trend upwards. There's not really much. Oh, for example, okay, let me give you guys a more clear example. Distribution is where sellers sell, or where they sell their positions, take profit, whatever, drive the price down, whatever you want to call it. This right here is something I would call distribution phase, something where it's trending downwards, making lower lows. As we can see here, it's trending down, making lower lows. We get a low, resistance, low, resistance, low, blah, blah, making lower lows. So anyways, also that can be a perfect example actually to identify resistance. So we see the drop, and then we see making a lower low. Price comes back, goes back to try and reclaim that level. But obviously it didn't get reclaimed. Same thing. That's an example. Another one right here. Resistance. So yeah, something like that is what you can do as well. So let's continue. And then the accumulation phase is this area, base area. Also, you can consider that as well when there's a tiny base or a tiny trend or whatever you want to call it. But usually that's what I call it on the 4 hours. So this is what I would say accumulation. And then public participation is the upwards trend. So that's one way to say it, one way to call it. Obviously, you can call it downtrend, base, uptrend, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, so we have our accumulation phase right here at demand. So we mark our levels, we mark our zone, whatever you want to call it. We mark our supply and demand, support, resistance, whatever. So we have our demand here, we have our supply here, and then we officially get the pop. So that is your resistance. Let's see, let's try and find one more resistance. One more resistance for you guys. Okay, I believe this is a good one right here. Let's see, where did I find that at? No, that's not the best one. I want to find you guys a clear. Oh, I believe there was actually one on ES today. Let's take a look. Okay. ES, let's see. Was it on the 1 hour? Let's see. No, not really that clear for you guys. Let's take a look at something else. I'm trying to find a more clear resistance for you guys, just to really show you guys. Okay, right here is a nice one as well. Okay, perfect. Like I said, Oracle resistance. What happened? We get the start of the move. We get our second touch, which is our second rejection. And after that, it starts to play as resistance. Obviously, it didn't just instantly reject like how it did here, but you guys get the picture of what I'm trying to talk about. We get our rejection here, we get our rejection here, we get that red candle there, we get our rejection here, we get our rejection there. That's the big rejection. So all that confirms for, resistance. So yeah, that's gonna be it for that. Okay. Now for the last part, to make the video is about to cross an hour. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chart each sector of the market. I'm gonna chart at least two charts from each sector of the market. Sorry guys, I know this is a pretty long video, but yeah, I'm going to be charting two sectors or two holdings of the market. Let's start off with XLK. Okay. XLK currently base formation. Let's look at the bigger time frame. Let's see. Too many gaps. Let's look. Let's take a look. Nothing much going on as far as I can see. I could see just a little little downtrend, you know, or a little pennant, whatever you want to call it, whatever you guys see. Um, Nothing much that catches my eye. Wouldn't trade this. Let's see. We get our support at this level. Perfect example for support. We get our support here. Guess what? We are currently, I would say, a base formation at this level. Oh, sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. So we get our base level at this. Sorry. Hold on, guys. I'm having little difficulties. Okay, I can take off my headset. Oh my gosh, so much better. Anyway, so where was I? We have our support level at this level. As you can see, this used to be resistance, so that's perfect example for resistance. We got our rejection here, and then we ended up getting the break of supply or resistance. And then we get a retest there. So now this turns into our support level. So like how I said, whenever we get the break of the top, that now turns into support. Whenever it breaks below support, that is our resistance. Anyway, so now I would say we're in some type of base formation. So how would I chart this? I would probably say right here around this area is probably my support or my resistance or supply, and right here is mainly my demand or support. So that's how I would chart that. So now let's look into the holdings of XLK. So let's look at CRM. Let's take a look. Not much going on here. We're in a downtrend. What I do see, we do have a nice base here. So let's take a look at this. We get a nice base here. This used to be, so as we can see, this used to be, this was trending downwards. This used to be resistance. Now it turned into support. So let's look at the 15-minute time frame. We see intraday, it sells off at the open. Right after that, we recover, and now we use the pre-market level as our support level. So yeah, there's that. So now I'm possibly seeing that this can possibly go and start a reversal. If you look at the bigger time frame, we're currently, let's see, I would say this area right here is probably our support area, right there. Our support area, we get previous resistance. We get our rejection there. Then we get the break, and then we get the retest, and which starts the move, which started the uptrend. So guess what? Whatever happens in the past happens in the future. CRM comes down from accumulation right here, whatever you want to call it, highs, whatever you want to say, and then falls at our previous support or previous resistance, now turns support. So guess what? Now this can likely be a reversal. Obviously it's too early to tell. This can or cannot be a reversal. Okay, let's keep it quick. Microsoft. What's going on with Microsoft? Like how I said, we got our previous resistance, turn support. Now, guess what? We now have our falling knife. We have our support level here. And guess what? It popped right back up. So this started at 392 and it's now at 413. Let's keep it quick. So let's now go to NFLX. NFLX. So if we take a look at the weekly, also at support. Also, another thing that I also forgot to include is the sector can also tell you where the chart will go or where the chart will take the sector. If the sector is at support and you see all these tickers at support as well, we can see an obvious pop. If we see them at resistance and these are at support, then it can more likely be it will most likely be dropped instead of popped. But regardless, market does whatever it wants to do. That always doesn't happen. It always depends on the sentiment, what has strength, what doesn't have strength, what's weak, what's not. So it all depends. That will all be talked about in another video. So let's do one more. Let's do Meta. Okay, let's look at Meta. Let's look at the weekly. We don't see much there. Nothing interesting in Meta. Let's look at let's look at, let's see what else. Let's look at Google. Sorry, Google. There's a fly in here. Google, let's look at the 4-hour. Nothing much. I probably wouldn't trade this. I wouldn't touch this. There's multiple names to go based off of. Let's look at Amazon. We get previous support right here. And guess what? Amazon Blue right below support. Maybe we can see some type of recovery from support, as we can see here. As we can see in the 15, within the past couple days, or what is this? 2-5, yeah, past couple days, last week, whatever. We see that it actually started popping from this level. Obviously, like how I said, levels will never be perfect. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. Like right here, like I probably would have said, I wouldn't necessarily say this was charted wrong because we have our pop here and our pop there. But you know, these will react to different levels, and guess what? We touch support now. That support is confirmed. Now we can see some type of reversal, and guess what's going on in the lower time frames? We see a trend slowly building up. We get a high, we get our high, another high, and we can possibly see a continuation. Will we get that? Not sure. We won't know. Nobody knows. Anyways, let's move on to a different sector. XLV. Let's make it quick. XLV, we are currently hitting towards all-time high. Like I said, I don't always go based off wicks. You know, I have that charted there just because I believe at the time we were already going above that, trading above it or trading around it, whatever. So I marked that. So anyways, let's move this down here in the more correct spot. So let's move it there, for example. Let's just put it right there. So now let's take a look at the chart. Let's take a look at the 4-hour. So now, as we can see, we're in some type of accumulation phase. We get our, I drew that resistance, turn support, and guess what? Whatever happened in the past happens in the future. So resistance right here, we get a base, resistance. Let's take a look at it closely. We get our resistance, support right here at this area. So what happens? We get our pop. Guess what? We start going up. We start trending up. Obviously, it goes down, hits demand at this level. Where do I have that marked? Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the daily. Previous resistance right there now turned into support. So let's go back into the 4-hour. Let's go ahead and do that. Pop, 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 everything. So now this is a known. That is a known support area. So now let's draw our resistance. Boom. Resistance, boom, right there. Base. Also, you can use that level or whatever. Like how I said earlier in the video, I usually say zones are my support, or are my supply and demand, and my support and resistance are levels. Levels, what are levels? These right here. These lines, zones, areas, this right here, this box. So now that we're at all-time highs in an accumulation phase, let's take a look at its holdings. Johnson & Johnson, trending upwards. Let's take a look at the bigger picture. What's going on? Currently at all-time highs. Okay, nothing much going on. But guess what? We can use our previous day highs, previous day lows, whatever, to continue to trade this. Would I touch this? No. There's better things to look at than that. If anything, I'd probably short it, but I want to wait for more confirmation. Let's look at Pfizer. Take a look at this. I'm trying to make this as quick as possible. Pfizer, what's going on with Pfizer? Nothing much with Pfizer. The only thing I can see is from right here, we have our accumulation phase from this area. And guess what? It comes back. Obviously, it didn't touch it perfectly, but sometimes that happens. So let's take a look at this more closely. We get our resistance here. So we have right here support. Then we get it. Let's take a look closely. We have our support. And then again, another pop. And then we drop below. Now this has turned resistance. So now that has turned to resistance, I'm expecting shorts. So we get our nice accumulation phase, rejection, then we get our rejection again. However, we're still in this area. So guess what? We fast forward a little bit, a month later, whatever it is, now we get our uptrend. We get the break, and guess what? What happens in the past is more likely to happen in the future. We wick it, now guess what? We're starting to trend upwards. So take a look right there. Boom, trending upwards. Now, guess what? Boom, right there. Not the perfect level, but you get the idea. Now take a look at this. Boom, right there. Now, if we drag this along all the way over here, boom, right there. Support, turn resistance, right there. Resistance, resistance. Look, it's that easy. It's that simple, you know? I just charted this. I didn't even, like I said, I didn't even look at these before I hopped on. I'm doing them as I go and I'm finding them right away. And this is what happens when you chart every single day. So if you put in the work, you're going to see improvements. I guarantee you, if you just chart to every single ticker, like how I have here, for a month straight, you're going to start noticing things that you never saw before. Anyways, let's take a look at UNH. UNH, let's take a look at this. What is going on with UNH? Let's look at this. We have support. Let's see. Is this a support? Maybe. Not really. I probably wouldn't name that support. What's going on here? Nothing. Okay, cool. Let's take a look. What's going on through here? This was previous resistance. Now turned support. Guess what? Now this is officially resistance since we broke above, still trading below. Now guess when the next time I'm going to short? Once it hits that area. Or what you can also do is have some type of falling knife entry at this level right here. So guess what? Let me mark this down for a future video. Boom. Perfect level. Nicely drawn. Okay, let's move on. Let's do XLF financials. Okay, let's look at this. Let's see if I can chart these, because last time I tried charting these, this didn't really work because of that. Okay, fortunately I can't do financials. For some reason this this app doesn't really, it's, I don't know, it acts weird sometimes. Let's skip financials. Let's go ahead and let's do XLE. We'll finish this up with XLE. Okay, XLE, what happens? So XLE, let's look at the weekly. We have our ascending triangle. Okay, cool. We have our accumulation right here. And now, guess what? We get that pop. So we're building pressure. We're trending upwards. At this resistance level, we get resistance, 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 rejection, rejection, rejection. Trending upwards, building pressure to that resistance level. Guess what? We get that pop. That's why I charted this. I didn't chart this just now. Guess what? We start the uptrend. Boom, perfect. Sounds good. Let's see what all the other tickers are doing. XOM, same exact thing. XOM is following its sector. So let's take a look at CVX. Is it following? Boom, same thing. Is it exactly how it is? No, but guess what? We get some type of flag or channel, whatever you want to call it. Boom, boom, boom. Or if you want to take a look at it this way, boom, boom, boom. You can have multiple levels and you can chart it differently. You're never going to get your level perfect. So yeah, but look at that. I would call that a flag. If you guys don't know what a flag is, search it up. Look, we get a nice rally and boom, guess what? And another thing I just noticed just now, guess what? Boom, previous support turned resistance. Guess what? Resistance, rejection, rejection. And now we get the pressure built up right there all the way up into resistance. Boom, get that pop, retest. Now guess what? That previous resistance now gets turned into support. Now let's take a look at the future. Whatever happens in the past happens in the future. That's the word of the day or sentence of the day. We got our pop here. We get our pop here. Pop there. Pop there. We get a base pop. Boom. The uptrend. Guess what? Flag pattern on top of a retest level. Guess what's likely to happen? Another freaking pop. Now look at that. Now guess when's the next time I'm going to short this thing. I'm looking for shorts at this level right there. Boom. Easy. Now, and when I first started trading, I never saw things like this, guys. So this doesn't happen overnight. So the only way to really identify these things, if you really put in the work, trading takes a very long time to really master. And to be honest, I don't even think you can master perfectly. But experience, when you gain experience, that is what's very important. To me, experience is the most important thing ever. For example, you get out of college, you're fresh out of college, you're doing engineering. I know people that have gotten fresh out of college from a good college, decent college, whatever, try and get into engineering, and they don't get accepted to a job. Why? Because they don't have experience. I had a food truck, guys. I owned a food truck. I'm not gonna hire I wasn't going to hire somebody, a 16-year-old that has no experience working in a kitchen, working in a grill, knowing how to talk to people. You really think a 16-year-old is going to do as good of a job as I did when in the food truck, when I have years of experience? I grew up in a restaurant. My whole dad side of the family had restaurants growing up, and then I had my own. So I already had that experience of cooking and dealing with customer service. A 16-year-old is more likely not going to have that. So it's like, why would I hire them? So the same thing here. What you want is experience. Once you gain experience, that's when everything will really start to click. So, anyways, guys, we took an hour and 15 minutes in this video as of now. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. If you guys have any more questions, go ahead and ask me in the Discord, or go ahead and comment below in this video. If you comment, that'll be perfect, because I can reply to you in there and I'll see it. In the Discord, it might get lost with multiple other chats. But yeah, sorry guys that this took forever. Hopefully you guys watched throughout this entire video. It's worth it. I really hope you guys watch it. I'm going to post this in the chat. Hopefully you guys take a look. So have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Enjoy.